Lawyers for the family of U.S. teenager Michael Brown have denounced the process that cleared the police officer who killed the 18-year-old as unfair. Attorney Benjamin Crump said the process was broken a day after a grand jury opted not to send white police officer Darren Wilson to trial. Mr. Brown was killed on the 9th of August in Ferguson, Missouri, sparking unrest. State Governor Jay Nixon says more than 2,200 National Guardsmen will be around the St. Louis suburb on Tuesday. There were about 700 guardsmen on the streets on Monday night, but they could not stop more than a dozen buildings being set alight. A police chief said the violence that followed the grand jury ruling was worse than any Ferguson had seen. More than 80 people were arrested amid riots across several areas of St. Louis. 61 of those arrests were in Ferguson, with charges including burglary and trespassing. Civil rights leader Al Sharpton, who attended a news conference with Mr. Brown's family, criticized the prosecutor's decision to announce the verdict late at night on Monday, saying it was irresponsible. Mr. Sharpton said the jury had broken our hearts, but he vowed to continue to fight for a new level of accountability of policing in this country. Michael Brown Law. Violent protests were not in the spirit of Michael Brown, Mr. Sharpton added, saying the young man would not be remembered for the ashes of buildings burning in Ferguson. Instead, he said Mr. Brown's family would push for new legislation to protect citizens and support a Michael Brown law that required all police officers to wear body video cameras. At the scene, Joanna Jolly, BBC News, Ferguson. The sun's shining this morning on South Florissant, which saw some of the most violent demonstrations outside the Ferguson Police Department last night. Local residents have been up since the early hours cleaning up the streets. Shopkeepers are boarding up shops. A small group of protesters is yelling at half a dozen police standing outside the department. A group of residents is standing outside a beauty parlor which was looted last night. Its windows have been smashed in and they're hoping to stop anyone else coming in and looting. We're trying to come together and get past this, says Judy. Everyone's expecting more demonstrations tonight. They let our town burn, says Anastasia Knowles. They sacrificed us for Clayton, she says, referring to the choice to deploy the state National Guard there and not in Ferguson. Many in Ferguson's predominantly African-American community have called for Mr. Wilson to be charged with murder, but a Missouri grand jury, of 9 white and 3 black members, made no recommendation of charges. Lawyers for the Brown family criticized the decision to call a grand jury rather than appointing a special prosecutor and accused State Prosecutor Robert McCulloch of seeking to discredit the victim. We could see what the outcome was going to be, and that is what occurred last night, Mr. Crump told reporters, adding, "This process is broken. This process should be indicted." Wrongful death lawsuit. Much of the debate since August has centered on whether Michael Brown was attempting to surrender to Darren Wilson when he was shot, but Mr. McCulloch said physical evidence had contradicted some of the witness statements. The jury was made up of 12 randomly picked citizens from the state of Missouri. At least 9 votes were needed in order to issue an indictment. Mr. Brown's family could yet file a wrongful death lawsuit against Mr. Wilson, who is currently on paid leave.